If you haven't already clicked through the link I'm giving at the bottom in the description box to sign up for this upcoming event on 16th of February, please do so. I'm getting ready to invest a bunch of my own money into the stock market. I want to find some stocks to buy, and the research process I'm going through, I'm going to be using that as my presentation. So if you want to know what I'm investing in and why, then you want to click through and sign up for that presentation. You don't have to view it at the time it's live. If you're registered, you'll get a link to view it later, but if you don't register, you will miss out on that. This is Lara with an update for you for XRP on 3rd of February 2023. I'm recording now from the edge of the Amazon. We made it to Colombia, and we're going to continue our journey on up to Bogota. So over the next couple of weeks, I still won't be able to provide you a lot of free stuff, but once I'm settled in Bogota for a few weeks, then I will be able to do so again. So thank you so much for your patience. XRP was top of the list of what you voted for, so I'm going to start working through that. Someone made multiple votes for BPRO. I did say please don't do that, and I can see it when you do that. So even though you made multiple votes, I won't be doing BPRO for you. So I wish people would listen. Oh well, anyway. Elliott wave first, classic analysis last. XRP is one that I began buying. It's one of the first coins I began buying back in 2019, and I've bought quite a bit of it proportionally, and so I keep an updated Elliott wave count. So this is essentially the Elliott wave analysis I've done for my own purposes, so I'm sharing that with you today. Back down here in the end of 2019, start of 2020, the end of a bear market, cycle wave 2. I've my monthly chart, cycle wave 1 is a 5-wave impulse, and within cycle 1 I've calculated the lengths of primary 1, 2 and 3, and that's going to be important when I get to the next chart. From this low to this high for XRP, I see a pretty good looking leading expanding diagonal, meets all Elliott wave rules. From this high to this low, I now see a completed double zigzag for primary wave 2. The first zigzag in the double is labelled intermediate wave W. The double is joined by a 3 in the opposite direction. Intermediate X subdivides as an expanded flat A, B, C, which nicely explains the 5-wave structure of this upward movement. And intermediate wave Y, an extended zigzag A, B, C, extended in terms of time, but not in price. Intermediate W was travelled 1.31, and intermediate Y travelled 1.13. So intermediate Y is actually a little bit shorter in terms of price, but a lot longer in terms of time as volatility declines as the market continues in a bear market. It is possible, however, that primary wave 2 may not be over. It could continue lower as a triple zigzag. Triple zigzags aren't very rare structures, but they're fairly uncommon. I have seen a few over the years and in my research, and so we have to acknowledge that possibility, and primary wave 2 may not move beyond the start of 1 below 0.1138. This is my indication of when the bear market is over for XRP. I've drawn this best fit channel around this bear market from the high to this first major swing high within the bear market. There's an overshoot here, a test of resistance here. These tests fell a bit short of resistance, and there's a few tests of support. So this trend channel has some reasonable technical significance, and it's very long held. If I see a full weekly candlestick above and not touching this trend line of upward movement, a green candlestick, if that happens, I'm going to have enough confidence in this wave count to then move the invalidation point up to the low down here and say I'm really confident that primary 2 would indeed then be over, and I would have confidence primary 3 is underway. I bought a little bit more XRP recently, and I think I'm fully loaded now. I'm just going to let this one run for 3 to 5, maybe 7 years at the absolute most. Depends on where I am in my life stage when this bull market continues higher. So let's take a look at the start of primary wave 3, possibly the slowdown here. This point down here. My last analysis, I had expected one more very slight new low after this low back in November last year. It didn't happen, and price is just moving higher. I've checked the hourly chart for subdivisions within minor wave 1, and it absolutely does subdivide. It's a decent looking 5-wave impulse. There's 1, 2, there's a 3rd and 4th wave up in here before the final short 5th wave. It's pretty common for cryptocurrencies to exhibit time-consuming second waves and relatively brief fourth waves. Here's an example. This third wave impulse of minuet 3, sub-minuet 1, sub-minuet 2, a double combination, sub-minuet 3, a very strong impulse, and sub-minuet 4, a sharp zigzag, and sub-minuet 5 to end the impulse. The fourth wave here is a lot more brief than its counterpart second wave, and that's because the fifth wave that comes just before and just after it, the strong downward movement, pulls the fourth wave in the direction of the larger trend, in this case here down, forcing it to be often more shallow and often more brief than its counterpart second wave. I keep explaining this tendency. I'm used to seeing this on commodities, particularly gold. I've been analysing that one on a daily or weekly basis for over 10 years now, and I had to get used to that quite quickly with gold, and cryptocurrencies exhibit that tendency even to an even more extreme degree. From this high to this low, I can see a fairly good looking double zigzag completed. I'll label this minor 2. And from this low to this high, this looks like a very good looking 5-wave impulse and possibly a zigzag complete for minute 2, but it certainly could continue sideways as a flat or a combination, or lower as a double zigzag. So I'm labeling it over here, but I am absolutely open to the possibility this could continue sideways or lower. Again, I'm doing this essentially for my own investing purposes, and I do not day trade cryptocurrencies. I think that's absolute madness. These are the most volatile markets I have ever seen on a chart, and I think there are far too many people out there learning to day trade on cryptocurrencies, which you will lose all your money multiple times. I can be fairly almost 100% confident of that. I think the best approach to these markets is to buy low, hold throughout volatility and throughout several years, and sell high. I like one of Warren Buffett's famous quotes: only invest in a market if you're prepared to hold that investment for at least 5 years, and that's what I'm doing, trying to buy at a relative low, hold for many years, and sell at a relative high. I'm not going to be in and out like an In-N-Out burger and lose my money and create stress, so it just doesn't work for me. Okay, here and ends the lecture, so sorry. Okay, if primary 2 is over here, then I have a potential target for primary 3. My targets for cryptocurrencies are highly provisional, especially for XRP. It doesn't reliably exhibit Fibonacci ratios between its actionary waves, and that's what I use to calculate targets. And so this target of 10.5 times the length of primary 1, I've looked back at the relationship between primary waves 1, 3 and 5 within cycle wave 1. That's on the monthly chart, which is not in this analysis. It's in previous analyses on my website. You can click through and look at that. Within primary cycle wave 1, primary 3 there was 10.5 times the length of its counterpart primary 1, and so if this primary 3 exhibits that same relationship to its primary wave 1, then a reasonable expectation would be about 19.49. This is not really so much as an actual target, and I'm not going to use it like that. It's an idea of where it might end up. I'm going to be using Elliott wave and classic analysis much more strongly than any target I can calculate to try and identify the end of primary 3 in some probably years away when it finally ends. It may only subdivide as an impulse, and I'm going to label intermediate wave 1 within it incomplete. When intermediate wave 1 is complete, we'll then expect another big deep correction to last several weeks for intermediate 2, which may not move beyond the start of 1 below 0.2794. Rather noisy place, the edge of the Amazon here. A lot of insects making a lot of noise. The birds are a bit quiet now. Dawn is over and they're having a wee rest, and it's the insects' turn now. There's nothing I can do about it. Okay. On the weekly chart, XRP is consolidating with resistance about 0.51 and support about 0.35 to a little bit below that, maybe 0.30, but slightly stronger at 0.35. ADX still declining. It tells us there's no clear trend at this time frame, and the DX lines are whipsawing, so typical consolidation. Swings from support to resistance and back again. We need to see a breakout above 0.51 or solidly below 0.35, and a follow through probably, because this support area is a bit of a grey. It's a larger zone. We need to see a breakout before we can have confidence in the direction of the next trend. We haven't seen that yet. On the weekly chart, there's a little bit of hesitancy here for a bullish case for my Elliott wave count, because I'm not seeing upward weeks with substantially stronger volume than downward weeks. A little bit of an increase here, this week on week here, but then the following 2 weeks, these last 2 weeks here, a decline in range and decline in volume. That's concerning for a bullish case, so I am certainly open to primary wave 2 continuing lower as a triple zigzag, as I explained on my weekly chart. That's why I leave that invalidation point where I've left it. On balance, volume gives a bullish signal, but it's pretty weak, so I wouldn't give this much weight. We've been over 80x. RSI, stochastics, money flow, all neutral. Stochastics returning from close to oversold. Didn't quite reach overbought on the last upward swing. Didn't reach oversold on this last downward swing. Let's expect price to continue overall higher, choppy overlapping movement to find resistance at or just a bit below 0.51, and let's see if stochastics gets fairly close to overbought when price gets up to that resistance. And then we'll look and see if there's strength in upward movement. We'll look for either an upward breakout or a change and a turnaround and a downward swing to support, and stochastics to move back toward oversold. That's why I use stochastics for a consolidating market, to help identify when swings upward or downward may be about to end. On the daily chart, we had a golden cross here. The 50-day moving average moves above the 200, and now we've got a death cross, so it's really unclear what direction this market is going in. Resistance about 0.30, about 0.45, a bit above that, and support about 0.34 on the daily chart. ADX declining, no clear trend. Stochastics swinging from overbought to oversold. Price swinging from resistance to support, back up to resistance. Stochastics reached overbought. Stochastics now moving back through neutral. So for the short term, I'll expect a bit of a pullback, probably quite likely to about 0.375 within the larger consolidation on the weekly chart. Remember, I said on the weekly chart, price will swing from support to resistance with choppy overlapping movement. The daily chart gives it a little bit more context and looks at a little bit more detail of how that choppy overlapping movement may work. So for the short term, a little bit of downward movement within an overall larger upward swing. I hope that makes sense. At the daily chart level, recent upward movement is strongest on upward sessions, but when we see upward sessions several in a row, we're seeing overall volume decline. This is quite concerning for a bullish case for XRP. So I'm going to lean bullish with a little bit of fence sitting. I'm absolutely open to the idea XRP could continue lower. I want to see a breakout on the weekly chart before I've got confidence that it's in an new upward trend. There's a little bit of an increase in ATR as price rises, so that's a little bit that's a good indication for a bullish case. But overall, these charts are pretty neutral from a technical analysis point of view, and Elliott wave is bullish, open to the possibility XRP may not have found its low. On balance, I think it probably has. Let's just have a look at the candlestick patterns. Here, I should have labelled this is a hammer, and here's a strong bullish long lower wick. So lows are holding about 0.30 to 0.34. And on the weekly chart, there's a hammer candlestick pattern at this low. RSI reached oversold but didn't exhibit bullish divergence. It's not common for RSI to reach oversold at the end of downward movements for XRP, so that in conjunction with the hammer is pretty much why I'm saying I'm going to lean bullish with my Elliott wave count for XRP. Okay, that's it from me. Thank you so much for your support.